The blast doors buckled inward as Commander Jake Lawson sprinted through the collapsing tunnel. Behind him, the Krillian warship's plasma fire turned solid steel into molten slag. His boots hammered against the deck plating, each step a gamble against the oxygen venting into space through 1,000 ruptures. Lawson, the docking bay's compromised. Lieutenant Kara Bennett's voice crackled through his helmet comm. You've got 30 seconds before the whole section decompresses. He didn't waste breath responding. The corridor ahead twisted left, then dropped into a maintenance shaft. Jake grabbed the ladder rails and slid down 3 levels, his gloves smoking from friction. The emergency lights flickered red, then died completely. He switched to thermal vision and kept moving. 20 seconds. The Krillians had torn through Earth's outer defense grid in 6 hours. Every prediction, every tactical model had been wrong. They weren't raiders, they weren't scouts. This was extermination, and humanity was losing. Jake hit the bay level running. The deck tilted 15 degrees as the station's gravity generators failed in sections. He could see the transport through the observation window, its engines already hot. Kara stood at the airlock, one hand on the manual release. "Move," she screamed. 10 seconds. The floor beneath him split open. Jake leaped, his fingers catching the edge of the gap as the metal peeled away like paper. Below, he glimpsed stars through the widening breach. His grip slipped. Kara's hand locked around his wrist, her face twisted with effort as she hauled him up. They tumbled through the airlock together. The hatch sealed with a hydraulic hiss just as the bay exploded outward into the void. Jake rolled to his feet inside the transport. Through the viewport, he watched the station fragment into burning debris. 14,000 people had been stationed there this morning. Now the transport's manifest showed 27 survivors. "Jump coordinates locked," Kara said, her voice flat. "Command wants us at the threshold gate." "The gate?" Jake stared at her. "That's on the far side of Centauri space. We'd be running straight through Krillian territory." "Not running." She pulled up a data stream on the main display. "We're delivering you." The screen showed a message, encrypted with codes Jake had never seen before. The header made his blood freeze. Priority Alpha. Recipient, the Sovereign Council of Vega Prime. Subject, human designation Jake Lawson. Status, expected. Expected? He grabbed the console edge. What the hell does that mean? Kara's expression shifted to something between fear and hope. "Apparently, you're famous. Someone out there's been waiting for you." She initiated the jump sequence. "And according to this transmission we intercepted, when the vegan queen heard your name on the emergency channels, she stood up in the middle of her war council and shouted that you'd finally arrived. The jump drive engaged, reality twisted." Jake had never left the solar system before today. Now he was heading into alien territory, toward a queen who somehow knew his name. The war had just become personal. The jump transition hit like a sledgehammer to the skull. Jake's vision blurred as the transport punched through subspace, stars stretching into white streaks before snapping back into focus. When the shaking stopped, they weren't looking at familiar constellations anymore. "Centauri drift?" Kara announced, checking the nav display. "We're 3 systems from Vega Prime. No Krillian signatures on scan. Yet." Jake moved to the weapons station, running diagnostics. Their transport had been a supply runner, not a warship. 2 pulse cannons and shields that wouldn't stop a determined asteroid. "How long until they pick up our trail?" "Depends on whether they know where we're going." She pulled up the intercepted transmission again. This message came from a vegan relay station. It was broadcast on every frequency simultaneously. Either they wanted us to find it, or they didn't care who else heard. Jake studied the encryption header. The symbols looked organic, flowing like written music rather than digital code. "Play the full message." Kara hesitated, then activated it. The voice that filled the cabin wasn't human. It resonated with harmonics that made Jake's chest vibrate. Feminine, but layered with undertones that suggested multiple vocal cords. The language was alien, but the computer translated in real time. "To the human called Jake Lawson. The echoes have spoken your name across 7 generations. The thread of becoming has woven your path to our doorstep. You are the unbroken, the one who stands when worlds fall. The Krillian swarm seeks to devour all light, but you carry the spark they cannot extinguish. Come to Vega Prime. The Queen awaits. War demands your presence. The transmission ended. Jake stood silent for 5 seconds. Then, 10. Finally, he turned to Kara. That's insane, completely. She didn't look away from the screen, but they knew the Krillians would attack Earth. This message was sent 4 days ago, before the invasion started. Prophecy? Jake laughed, but the sound came out hollow. I'm a frigate commander. I've never even met an alien before yesterday. What could they possibly want with me? The proximity alarm shrieked. Kara's hands flew across the console. Contact! 3 ships dropping out of jump right on top of us! The view screen flickered to life. 3 vessels materialized against the star field, their hulls crafted from what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. They moved with organic grace, positioning themselves in a triangle formation around the transport. Vegan warships, Kara breathed. They found us. A new transmission opened. This time the face that appeared on screen made Jake's breath catch. She was humanoid, but her skin shifted through shades of deep violet and blue like aurora light beneath flesh. Her eyes had no pupils, just swirling silver that seemed to see through the camera into his soul. A crown of crystalline branches grew from her temples, each one glowing with soft amber light. Commander Lawson. Her voice matched the recording, that impossible harmony. I am High Sentinel Lyra, First Blade of Queen Vessa's Guard. You will follow us to Vega Prime. Do not deviate. Do not delay. Wait, Jake stepped forward. How do you know who I am? Why does your queen think I'm important? Lyra's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those silver eyes. Because 70 years ago, a human ship appeared in our system. It was damaged, dying. We saved the crew. In gratitude, their captain gave us a gift. A recording, a genetic signature, and a promise that when the swarm came again, his descendant would stand with us. Jake's mouth went dry. What was the captain's name? Alan Lawson. The deck seemed to tilt beneath him. Alan Lawson, his grandfather. The explorer who disappeared during the first deep space expedition, presumed lost with all hands. The man whose service medals still sat in a box in Jake's quarters back on Earth. My grandfather's been dead for 70 years, Jake said quietly. Yes, Lyra nodded, but he made a promise in your name. And the vegan people do not forget our debts. She leaned forward. The Krillians destroyed your world's defenses in hours. They will burn Earth to ash within days unless you help us stop them. Your grandfather knew this war was coming. He prepared you for it, even if you never knew. Prepared me? Jake's voice rose. I didn't even know he'd made contact with aliens. He couldn't tell anyone. The knowledge would have changed too much, too soon. Lyra's image flickered as one of the vegan ships adjusted position, but he left you something. A skill, a trait, something that makes you different from every other human. And when Queen Vessa learned you survived Earth's fall, she knew the time had come. Kara gripped Jake's arm. What skill? What makes you special? Jake shook his head, but deep in his guts something stirred. A memory. Training simulations where he'd always seen patterns others missed. Combat scenarios where he'd made impossible shots. Tactical decisions that felt less like choice and more like inevitability. Follow us, Lyra commanded. The Queen will explain everything, but know this, Jake Lawson. The Krillians fear only one thing in this galaxy, and your grandfather met them once before. He learned their secret. Now you must weaponize it. The transmission cut. The 3 vegan warships adjusted course, engines flaring brilliant blue. Jake looked at Kara. She looked back, her expression asking the question neither wanted to voice. Set course, he said finally. Let's find out what my grandfather started. The transport fell into formation, and together they jumped toward Vega Prime, toward answers, toward war. Vega Prime filled the viewport like a jewel against velvet. The planet's surface shimmered with networks of light that formed geometric patterns visible from orbit. Massive bioluminescent forests created rivers of color that pulsed in rhythms Jake could almost feel through the hull. Atmospheric entry in 2 minutes. Kara said. Their traffic control is guiding us to the capital spire. The vegan escorts peeled away as the transport descended. Through the clouds, Jake saw cities that grew rather than were built. Towers of living crystal spiraled toward the sky, connected by bridges that swayed like branches in wind. Ships moved between them, not flying but swimming through the air as if gravity were optional. They landed on a platform that bloomed open like a flower to receive them. The airlock hissed. Jake checked his sidearm, then stepped out into alien air that tasted of ozone and something sweet he couldn't identify. Kara followed, her hand near her weapon. A delegation waited. 30 vegans stood in formation, their skin colors ranging from deep indigo to pale lavender. All wore armor that seemed to flow like liquid metal, constantly shifting to display patterns Jake suspected were rank insignia. High Sentinel Lyra stood at their center. Without the view screen between them, she was taller than Jake expected, easily 7 feet. Her crystalline crown caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across the platform. Commander Lawson, Lieutenant Bennett, welcome to Vega Prime. She gestured toward the largest spire. Queen Vessa awaits in the war chamber. We must not keep her waiting. They moved through corridors that pulsed with bioluminescence. Vegan citizens stopped to stare as Jake passed. Some touched their foreheads in what looked like salute. Others simply watched with those swirling silver eyes. They know who you are, Lyra said without looking back. The echoes have sung your coming for generations. To them, you are legend made flesh. I'm just a soldier, Jake muttered. No. Lyra stopped, turned. You are the grandson of the one who saved our fleet, the heir to a promise that spans lifetimes. And, unless I am mistaken, you have already felt it. The gift your grandfather carried. The reason the Krillians can never truly surprise you. Jake's jaw tightened. She was right. In every battle, every firefight, he'd known where the enemy would strike before they moved. He dismissed it as good instincts, as training, as luck. But it was more than that. It had always been more. What did my grandfather do to me? He asked. He did nothing. You were born with it. Lyra resumed walking. But he recognized it in you, even as an infant. That is why he came to us. To understand what you would become. They entered a chamber so vast Jake couldn't see the far walls through the mist that hung in the air. The ceiling arched hundreds of feet overhead, covered in moving constellations that matched no sky Jake knew. At the chamber's center, a circular platform floated unsupported above a pool of liquid light. On that platform stood Queen Vessa. She wore armor of flowing silver that seemed woven from starlight itself. Her crown was not crystal but living flame that burned cold and blue. She was smaller than Lyra, more delicate, but power radiated from her like heat from a forge. When she saw Jake, she went completely still. Then, exactly as the message had said, she leapt to her feet. He has arrived. Her voice rang through the chamber like a bell, and every vegan present dropped to one knee. Jake stood frozen as Queen Vessa crossed the platform in 3 strides and descended to stand before him. She was still taller, but she looked up at his face with an expression that mixed wonder and relief. 70 years, she whispered. 70 years I have waited. Your grandfather promised me that his blood would return, that when the swarm came again, a Lawson would stand with us. Her hand rose, hesitated, then gently touched Jake's chest over his heart. And here you are, the pattern unchanged, the genetic sequence pure, the gift intact. Your Majesty, Jake managed. I don't understand what you expect from me. Vessa's expression shifted to something fierce. I expect you to do what your grandfather could not. To end the Krillian swarm forever. She turned, gestured to the pool of light. It rippled, and images formed in the liquid. Jake saw worlds burning, fleets shattered, billions dying as the Krillians swept through system after system. Then the image shifted to show Earth, surrounded by enemy ships. They will consume your homeworld in 48 hours, Vessa said. Every human city will become ash. Every ship will become scrap. Unless we stop them here. Here, Kara spoke for the first time. Vega Prime is 3 systems away from Earth. How does fighting here help our people? Because the Krillians are not individuals. Vesa waved her hand and the image changed to show a massive organic structure floating in deep space. It pulsed like a heart, surrounded by thousands of smaller ships that moved in perfect synchronization. They are a hive, a single consciousness distributed across 1 billion bodies. And that consciousness emanates from the Prime Nexus, their queen mind. Destroy it, and every Krillian in the galaxy dies. Jake stared at the structure. Where is it? It jumps constantly, never staying in one location for more than hours. Vesa's eyes met his. But your grandfather discovered something. A human with your specific neural pattern, your exact genetic markers, can sense the Nexus, can track it through subspace, can hunt it across the stars. The words hit Jake like physical blows. That's impossible. You have done it already. Lyra stepped forward, pulling up a holographic display. Every battle you commanded, every engagement you survived. Review your tactical decisions. The display showed Jake's service record. Fight after fight, he'd positioned his ship exactly where the enemy would appear seconds before they arrived. He'd fired on empty space moments before Krillian vessels materialized. He'd always attributed it to pattern recognition. But the pattern was impossible for anyone else to see. You are a hunter, Vesa said quietly. The only hunter in the galaxy who can track the untraceable. Your grandfather was the same. He found the Nexus once, 70 years ago. He damaged it badly enough that the swarm retreated for decades. But he could not destroy it. He was alone, unsupported. And he died trying. Jake's hands clenched. So you want me to finish what he started? I want you to save both our peoples. Vesa's voice hardened. The Nexus is moving toward Earth. It will arrive in 26 hours to personally consume your world. But if you can track it, if you can lead our combined fleet to its location, we can end this war before Earth falls. Kara grabbed Jake's arm. You're talking about using him as bait, as a tracking beacon. I am talking about using him as a weapon, Vesa corrected. The only weapon that can kill the unkillable. The chamber fell silent except for the soft pulse of the light pool. Jake looked at the image of Earth, surrounded by enemy ships. Thought of the 14,000 who died on his station. Thought of billions more who would die if he walked away. Then he thought of his grandfather, alone in deep space, fighting a battle no one else even knew was happening. What do you need me to do? He asked. Queen Vesa smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. Exactly what a Lawson does best, she said. Hunt. The fleet assembled in high orbit like a constellation of war. Jake stood in the command center of the flagship Radiant Dawn, watching through the observation dome as 200 vegan warships took formation. Each vessel was unique, grown rather than manufactured, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight into spectrum displays that painted the void in colors. Beside the vegan fleet hung Earth's survivors, 43 human ships, battered and patched, running on emergency power and determination. They looked like scrap metal next to the elegant alien craft, but they held position with grim precision. The integration is complete, Lyra reported from her station. All human vessels are linked to our tactical network. When you find the Nexus, both fleets will respond as one. Jake studied the holographic display floating before him. It showed their position, the surrounding systems, and a 3-dimensional map of probable Nexus locations based on Krillian fleet movements. The problem was obvious. The search radius is too large, he said. Even if I can sense the Nexus, we'd need weeks to cover this much space, which is why we are not searching. Queen Vesa entered the command center, her armor now deep crimson with veins of gold. Combat configuration. We are baiting. She gestured, and the display shifted. A new marker appeared, showing a dense cluster of inhabited worlds at the edge of vegan territory. The Kelmar colonies. 6 billion souls spread across 9 planets. The Krillians have ignored them so far, focused on larger targets. But if we withdraw our defensive fleet, if we make them appear vulnerable, the Nexus will come. Kara looked up sharply from the communications console. You're using your own people as bait? I am using geography as bait. Vesa's expression remained calm. Every civilian will be moved to deep shelters before the Krylians arrive, but they will not know that. They will see helpless worlds and come to feed. Jake traced the route from the colonies to Earth, and when the Nexus appears there, we hit it with everything we have. Precisely. Vesa moved to stand beside him. But there is a complication. The Nexus never exposes itself directly. It sends wave after wave of attack ships, sacrificing thousands to protect itself. You will need to go into the swarm to get close enough to pinpoint its exact location so our weapons can strike true. You want me on a strike ship? Jake nodded slowly. Fast insertion, close range scan, transmit coordinates and get out. Not quite. Lyra pulled up specifications for a vessel Jake had never seen before. It was small, barely larger than a fighter, but its design made his breath catch. The hull was partially human, partially vegan, a hybrid of technologies that shouldn't work together but somehow did. We built this for your grandfather, Lyra explained. He died before he could use it. We call it the Thread Cutter. It incorporates human propulsion systems with vegan biological shielding. Fast enough to penetrate a Krylian swarm, tough enough to survive, long enough to matter. Jake examined the specs. The ship was suicide in engineering form. Maximum speed, minimum armor, weapons that would drain the power core in minutes. It was built for one purpose. Get in, accomplish the mission, probably die trying. I'll need a pilot, he said. You'll have one. Kara stood from her console. I'm rated on every human ship class. I can fly this. Absolutely not. Jake turned on her. You're staying with the fleet. Like hell I am. Her voice went flat. The tone she used when arguing was pointless. You're the tracker. I'm the pilot. We both know you can't fly worth a damn under combat stress. You need me. Before Jake could respond, an alarm shrieked through the command center. Krylian signatures, a vegan sensor operator called out. Massive fleet dropping out of jump at the Kelmar colonies. Count is over 3,000 ships and rising. The holographic display erupted with red markers, each one representing an enemy vessel. They swarmed into the system like locusts, immediately moving to surround the colony worlds. They took the bait faster than expected, Vesa said. Her voice carried satisfaction and dread in equal measure. Lawson, can you sense it? Is the Nexus among them? Jake closed his eyes. He'd never tried to deliberately use whatever this ability was. It had always been instinct, unconscious reaction, but now he reached for it, pushed his awareness outward toward the swarm. Nothing. He pushed harder, focusing on the sensation he'd felt moments before enemy ships appeared in past battles. That prickling at the base of his skull, that certainty of danger approaching. Still nothing. Then, like a door opening in his mind, he felt it. A presence. Vast. Ancient. Hungry. It pulsed with malevolence so pure it made his stomach turn. And it was aware of him, too. He could feel its attention shift, its consciousness probing toward his across the void. Jake's eyes snapped open. It's there, at the edge of the system. But it knows we're coming. It's waiting. Of course it is! Vesa's smile was cold. The Nexus remembers your grandfather. It has been waiting 70 years for another Lawson to hunt. Now it wants to finish what it started. Then let's not disappoint it. Jake moved toward the exit. Kara, prep the thread cutter. We launch in 10 minutes. All ships, battle formation! Vesa's voice rang through the fleet-wide channel. Human and vegan forces prepare for jump. We end the swarm today or we die trying. The command center erupted into coordinated chaos as crews scrambled to their positions. Jake and Kara ran through corridors that pulsed with acceleration warnings, heading for the launch bay where their hybrid ship waited. As they ran, Lyra's voice came through Jake's comm. Lawson, one more thing. When you get close to the Nexus, you will hear it. It will speak directly into your mind. It'll offer you things, show you things. Your grandfather's final message warned us of this. Whatever it shows you, whatever it promises, remember that the Nexus lies. It has been lying since the first stars burned. Understood, Jake replied. But ice formed in his chest. They reached the launch bay. The threadcutter sat in its cradle, sleek and deadly, its hybrid hull seeming to shift between metal and something organic. Vegan technicians made final adjustments while human engineers ran diagnostic checks. Jake and Kara climbed into the cramped cockpit. The neural interface settled against Jake's temples, cold at first, then warming as it synced with his nervous system. Through it, he could feel the ship's systems as extensions of his own body. "All systems green," Kara announced from the pilot seat. "We're ready." Through the bay doors, Jake could see the fleet beginning to move. 243 ships, humanity and vegans united, jumping toward their mutual enemy, toward the thing that had hunted Jake's grandfather across the stars, toward the heart of the swarm. "Launch when ready," Jake said quietly. The threadcutter dropped from the radiant dawn's bay and accelerated into the dark, racing ahead of the fleet, racing toward the Nexus, racing toward answers written in his grandfather's blood. The threadcutter punched through the jump point 3 seconds ahead of the main fleet. Reality twisted, stars smeared across the viewport, and then they were in the Kelmar system staring at hell itself. Krillian ships filled the void like a plague. They weren't sleek or beautiful. They were organic nightmares, all chitin and exposed muscle, pulsing with bioluminescent veins that glowed sickly green. They moved in perfect unison, thousands of vessels executing maneuvers as one, because they were one, extensions of the Nexus mind. "Holy God," Kara whispered. The fleet materialized behind them, spreading into attack formation. Vegan warships ignited their weapons, crystals flaring with contained starfire. Human railguns cycled to full power, capacitors whining. For one perfect moment, both forces hung in the silence before the storm. Then Queen Vessa's voice cut through every channel. "All ships, engage. Further. For Vega. Oh, for every world the swarm has taken." The battle exploded across 1,000,000 cubic kilometers of space. Kara threw the threadcutter into a dive, pushing the hybrid engines past their rated limits. They screamed through the opening volleys, dodging beams of coherent energy that could vaporize a cruiser. A Krillian interceptor locked onto them. Kara spun, fired a burst from their pulse cannons, and the enemy ship tumbled away, trailing atmosphere. "Where's the Nexus?" she shouted over the roar of combat. Jake had his eyes closed, the neural interface feeding him data from every sensor. But he wasn't looking at readings. He was feeling for that presence, that vast hunger he'd sensed before. There, deeper in the system, hidden behind layers of attack craft like a spider behind its web. "Bearing 273 Mark 8, he said. "Distance 40,000 kilometers and closing on the colonies." Kara adjusted course, threading them between two colliding capital ships. Behind them, a vegan dreadnought's main cannon fired, cutting through 6 Krillian cruisers in a single sustained beam. The enemy ships shattered, but dozens more swarmed to fill the gap. "They're not trying to win," Jake realized. "They're just holding us back." From what? He opened his eyes and saw it on the tactical display. The Krillian swarm was reforming, creating a corridor through their own forces, a path leading straight toward the colony worlds. And something was moving down that path. The Nexus came into visual range, and Jake's breath stopped. It was enormous. 10 kilometers across, a writhing mass of organic technology that defied description. Millions of tendrils connected it to the ships around it, literally puppeting them like extensions of its body. At its core, something pulsed with light that hurt to look at directly. The collective consciousness of 1 billion Krillian minds, compressed into a single point of awareness. "Target acquired," Kara said, her voice tight. "But Jake, the fleet can't get through. There's too many ships between us and it." She was right. The combined fleet was engaged across the entire battle space, fighting for every meter. They'd never reach firing range before the Nexus made planetfall. Then, we don't wait for them. Jake activated the weapons systems. "Get us close. I'll transmit exact coordinates when we're in range." Close means inside the swarm. Kara looked at him. "We won't make it out. My grandfather didn't make it out either." Jake met her eyes. "But he hurt it badly enough to buy 70 years of peace. That's worth the price." For a moment, Kara said nothing. Then she smiled, fierce, and wild. Your grandfather never had a pilot like me. Hold on. She punched the engines to maximum and dove straight into the swarm. Krillian ships converged from every direction. Kara flew like she was possessed, rolling and weaving through spaces that shouldn't exist. Jake worked the weapons, firing controlled bursts that carved paths through the organic hulls. The thread cutter's hybrid shielding flared under impacts, vegan biotech absorbing energy that would have destroyed any human ship. But there were too many. A Krillian destroyer materialized directly ahead. Kara couldn't avoid it. She fired everything, the pulse cannons burning through their reserves, and the destroyer's forward section exploded. She flew through the debris cloud, hulls screeching as fragments tore across their armor. "Shields at 40%, she called out. 20,000 kilometers to the Nexus. Jake felt its attention focus on them like a searchlight. Then, exactly as Lyra had warned, the voice filled his skull, bypassing his ears entirely. It was female, male, neither, both. It was every voice he'd ever heard, and none of them. It was the sound of civilizations dying. "Little Hunter, you come to finish his work?" Jake gritted his teeth. "I come to end you." Laughter, vast and cruel. "You think yourself different from him? You are the same. The same gift, the same weakness. Let me show you what I showed him." Reality fractured. Jake found himself standing on Earth, but it was wrong. The skies burned red. Cities lay in ruins, and walking among the wreckage were humans, but changed, enhanced. Their eyes glowed with the same sickly green as Krillian biotech. "Your grandfather saw this future," the Nexus whispered. "A union between our species. Humanity elevated, perfected, freed from the weakness of individual thought. No more war, no more suffering, only purpose, only unity. Unity as slaves?" Jake spat. "Unity as gods." The vision shifted. Now he saw fleets beyond counting. Human and Krillian merged, sweeping across the galaxy. "Your grandfather refused this gift. He chose death over transcendence. Will you make the same mistake?" The Nexus was afraid. "You're trying to buy time," he realized. "You know we can kill you." The vision shattered. Fury replaced the persuasive tone. "You know nothing. You are an insect. Your grandfather was an insect. I have consumed 1,000 species. I have—" "Shut up!" Jake opened his eyes. They were 5,000 kilometers from the Nexus now, so close he could see individual tendrils writhing. "Kara, target lock. Transmit to the fleet now." She sent the coordinates on every channel. "Transmission sent!" "But Jake, the fleet is still pinned down. They can't get a clear shot." "Then we make our own shot." He armed their remaining weapons. A single torpedo. One chance. The Nexus screamed into his mind. A sound of pure rage. Every Krillian ship in the swarm turned toward the thread cutter. Thousands of weapons locked on. "Fire!" Jake shouted. Kara launched the torpedo. It streaked toward the Nexus, trailing plasma fire. The Krillians fired everything. The thread cutter's shields died instantly. Hull plating vaporized. Alarm shrieked as systems failed. But the torpedo struck home, burying itself in the Nexus's core. The detonation was small, barely enough to scratch the massive structure. But it created an opening, a wound, a target. And through that wound, Queen Vessa's voice rang triumphant across the fleet channel. "All capital ships fire, concentrated barrage on transmitted coordinates." And this, 200 vegan and human ships fired as one. The combined firepower of two civilizations converged on a single point in space. The Nexus shrieked as the beam struck, as railgun slugs tore through its flesh, as plasma warheads detonated inside its core. The light at its center flared, pulsed, then went dark. The scream cut off. Every Krillian ship in the system went dead. Thousands of vessels all silenced in an instant. They drifted without power, without purpose. Shells piloted by a consciousness that no longer existed. In the shattered cockpit of the thread cutter, Jake slumped against his restraints, blood running from his nose where the Nexus's dying scream had nearly torn his mind apart. "Is it done?" Kara's voice was weak. Did we win? Jake looked at the dark mass of the Nexus, now just meat and metal floating dead in space. Yeah, he whispered. We won. Then the Threadcutter's remaining power failed, and everything went dark. Jake woke in a bed of living crystal that pulsed with soft amber light. His body ached, but the pain was distant, managed by something he couldn't identify. He tried to sit up and found Kara asleep in a chair beside him, her head resting on the edge of the bed. Bandages covered her left arm. Easy. Queen Vessa's voice came from the doorway. She entered, her armor replaced by flowing robes. You both nearly died. The Threadcutter was destroyed, but we recovered you in time. Jake's throat was dry. The fleet, victorious. Earth is safe. Vessa approached, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked tired. We lost 38 ships, 3,000 vegans dead, 400 humans. But the swarm is broken. Every Krillian vessel in the galaxy went silent when the Nexus died. It will be centuries before they could evolve another consciousness, if ever. The weight of those numbers settled on Jake's chest. 3,400 lives. The price of victory. Your grandfather would be proud, Vessa said quietly. He started this hunt alone. You finished it with armies at your back. That is the difference between desperation and hope. Kara stirred, her eyes opening. She saw Jake awake and smiled. About time. You've been out for 2 days. 2 days? Jake looked between them. What happened after we fired? You killed the unkillable. Vessa said simply. The torpedo created the opening. Our fleet delivered the execution. But without you, without your ability to track what cannot be tracked, we would still be searching. Earth would be ash. Jake thought of the vision the Nexus had shown him. His grandfather, alone in the dark, seeing the same offer of false unity, choosing death over surrender. My grandfather, he said. Did he leave anything else? Any message? Vessa reached into her robes and produced a small data crystal. He left this. He said it was for his family, for whoever came after him. We have kept it safe for 70 years. Jake took the crystal with shaking hands. Kara helped him sit up as he activated it. A hologram flickered to life above the bed. Alan Lawson appeared, younger than Jake had ever seen him in photographs. He wore a pressure suit, patched with vegan biotech, and blood-stained his shoulder, but his eyes were clear. If you're watching this, then your family. Maybe my son. Maybe a grandchild I'll never meet. His voice was hoarse. And if you're watching this, it means the swarm came back. Means you had to do what I couldn't finish. He paused, looked off camera at something. I found their weakness. Our gift, this ability to sense them. It comes from something in our DNA. Something ancient. I don't know if it's human evolution, or alien intervention, or just cosmic accident, but it makes us invisible to them until we choose to be seen. And once we're close, once we mark them, they can't hide anymore. Alan's expression hardened. I hurt the Nexus today, badly. But I'm dying, and I can't finish it. So I made a deal with Queen Vessa. She'll keep this message. She'll watch for another like me. And when the swarm returns, she'll be ready. Psst. He leaned forward, his eyes seeming to look directly at Jake. I don't know your name. Don't know if you'll be brave or afraid, but I know you'll be family. And I know you'll do what needs doing. Because we don't quit. We don't surrender. When the universe puts monsters in our path, we become bigger monsters. Alan smiled, tired but genuine. Finish the hunt. Make them remember that humanity doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, and never, ever stops coming. The hologram faded. Jake sat in silence, holding the crystal. 70 years. 3 generations. A promise kept. He was right about you, Vessa said. You are everything he hoped you would be. I'm just a soldier who got lucky. Jake's voice was rough. No. Kara touched his hand. You're the man who saved 2 civilizations. That's not luck. That's who you are. Vessa moved to the window, looking out at Vega Prime's rebuilt capital. The war is over, but the peace must be built. Earth and Vega will need to work together now. Your grandfather started that alliance. You proved it could survive fire. Jake stood slowly. Kara supporting him. Through the window, he could see human and vegan ships docked side by side, crews moving between them, sharing technology and stories. What happens now? He asked. Now? Vesa turned, and her smile was warm. Now you go home. You tell Earth what happened here. You tell them humanity has allies among the stars. And when you're ready, when your people are ready, you come back. Because this was one war. The galaxy holds many more. And I suspect the Lawson family isn't finished hunting. Jake looked at the crystal in his hand, then at Kara, then out at the fleet that had fought together against impossible odds. His grandfather had died alone, hoping someone would finish what he started. Jake had finished it surrounded by thousands, two species united. That was the real victory. Not the death of the Nexus, but the birth of something new, something the Swarm had never expected. Humanity didn't stand alone anymore. When do we leave? Kara asked. Tomorrow, Vesa said. But tonight, we celebrate. Both our peoples. Both our victories. Jake nodded, but his eyes stayed on the stars beyond the window. Somewhere out there, his grandfather's bones drifted in the dark. Alone, no longer. The hunt was finished, but the story